just want to take.
Well,
So,
and a lot of it comes down to greed, because when I first came here in 1988, there were lots of companies that wanted to come here because Clark County was killing them with taxes and permits and fees and
we're not that
licenses,
far.
all that stuff. And we didn't have any of that. So people were starting to come out here and open businesses, and we had a lot of mom and pop businesses, and we had not huge manufacturing, but we had some light manufacturing coming out, and people coming this way. And then the city of Henderson got really smart, and they realized that, oh my goodness, look at what's happening. We can play off this. So what did they do? They started offering incentives. All of a sudden, they weren't charging the fees and the permits and things, and they were given actually a rebate on some taxes. And wow, so everybody quit coming out here because they could go right next door to Henderson. And in the meantime, we had decided that, oh, all these people were coming out here. This was all kind of in the same transition. All these people are coming out here. We need to take advantage of this. We need planning and zoning and permits and blah, blah, blah. And so the word got out, and it started scaring people away, and they all headed towards Henderson and North Las Vegas, instead of us leaving well enough alone, because we could have still kept those people.
Yeah, well, that's an issue, and I'll bring that up to you to see what your opinion is on this. When I came here, I was going to open up a business here. I moved up here from Tucson, and I went down to the town office, and now this isn't a county thing, but it was a town, and the opinion, I mean, just the feeling I got, the woman started preaching to me all these things I was going to have to do to open up a business, and oh my God, you're going to have to do this, this, and this. And it wasn't. And when I came from Tucson, they wanted me to have my business down there. It was, what can we do to help you? And here I felt that the attitude was that they didn't want me here. They didn't want the business. And I've heard that from people. That Star Nursery general manager told me that he had land out on Mance Road that they wanted to build a store for years. He just gave up. It was too hard to bring a store in.
And that was was a combination of the town and the county, not just the town, but the
just
county.
An attitude, Yeah,
and they all got together, and they all decided that, through this planning and zoning, and granted, we need some of that.
Right.
I mean, because we had this big problem. I'll never forget the people complaining because they built a nice house out here. And then the guy next door owned a bunch of property, and he started putting manure on his property and giving it away free because he just wanted to get rid of it, right? But he doesn't want to pile it on his property or next to his house, so he has a lot he buys, he puts it on there, and he's stinking these people out. And there's nothing they can do about it because there's no rules, no regulation, no zoning. They're stuck. Their only other thing would be to take him to court for a nuisance, and then that costs a fortune in attorney fees to take anybody to court. So, in a way, I can see where we need some kind of control.
We do need that, but we need to have officials working for us, employees working for us.
Yes.
That aren't against almost anything anybody talks to them about. That there's a different type of attitude. That attitude needs to get changed around, I think.
But we also had a problem because of the real estate company. We had all these people all of a sudden. They found out you didn't need permits to build a house. So they're all coming out of California and Arizona and some of these places, and they're putting in housing developments, and the land is cheap. And the problem is then you have all the real estate people trying to sell them, and you can't get loans on a house that doesn't have permits. FHA and VA and things, they frown at that if you haven't had proper inspections.
Right. And
so you've got to have a little bit of something to go along with that, so that if you're going to have development, you've got to be able to sell the house. So we have that aspect. So, and my thing is, I would just love to just fire everybody in planning and zoning and have them take a hike and go back to California or wherever, because all this money that's being given to those departments goes to a company in California, and then they send us back the piddlings of whatever after they pay their employees that are living here and we're hired here, and of course they're spending some money here. But I don't really think we're benefiting from it in the way that we should.
They need to have
in place of that,
professional opinion. It's California given the possession.
Yeah, and we have what they call CAA. The company is CAA. I'm trying to think what it stands for right off. But so we need to sit down. We need to have rules and regulations without having this big conglomeration of things that scares people off. I mean, there's just like with the budget and anything else, it needs to be looked at and worked on before we can throw them out. So that's one of the things on my agenda first of all, what I had to do was, we just kind of been fooling around the last couple of years trying to stay afloat, but we had to get the town board out of the position they were in so that we could have a way that they were like, how would you say that? A roadblock. You know, they were just in the middle.
The people that were in there.
Yeah, and they had all these ideas, and they wanted to bring all these companies in. They were doing what free enterprise should be doing. That was not their position, to bring people in and try to give our property away to them so they would build a business, and the people got all upset about that, and that's kind of how they ended up out of their seats, because their job was just strictly what they said, that they kept saying that their job was to run the swimming pool, the cemetery, whatever, pay the bills, right?
And they went outside the scope of their position.
And you talk about upset, oh my God, there were always 60, 70, 80 people, maybe even 100 people at these meetings trying to beat them down and going, oh my God, you can't do this, this is our tax dollar, this is our property, you can't give things away, these people are scoundrels, they're going to run off with everything.
And they did,
and they did. Oh yeah.
They did.
The last one, the Contour one, oh yeah, that still has to be investigated. That absolutely needs to, and Pam's supposed to be
I call
looking
them Harley
at
World
this.
folks. But,
Yes, Pam's supposed to be looking at this, and they're supposed to be taking care of business, because that's why we have staff, and that needs to be audited and looked into.
Well, you can do that as a commissioner.
Absolutely, right? Yeah, we can, and we just have so many things upon us right now that these things are going to take a little bit of time. These are all going to take a little bit of time, because we're still trying to rearrange departments, like the fire department, and animal control is another one, and then we have business licensing and things, and then we have the big expensive fees they charge over at the community center to use it, and then in the meantime there are events that we have a lot of people tied up on that have committees because of the Harvest Festival, or
Pahrump Fall Festival.
Pahrump Fall Festival, yeah, I'm giving away my age here. And all the new plans coming for that, because now all of a sudden these people feel free and they're real happy and they're making, so it should be really good this year. And the chamber's taking it over, which is really what the position the chamber should have.
I think it'll be the best one we've had in years.
Oh yeah, because I remember the good ones. I remember the good ones when they came for, 10,000 people on Saturday came strictly for the rodeo and the barbecue.
It was packed.
The deep pit barbecue that we've got to bring back. We're not going to make it, I don't think, this year, but next year we should be in a position that if the chamber does all right this year and they're able to get some money in advance and stuff, we can move forward with that.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
That's very expensive, even with volunteers. It's very expensive to put on because of the meat, the cost of the meat. You're looking at $25,000 worth of meat, and then you have all the beans and the coleslaw that goes with it. But it is so worth it, and it does draw people from everywhere. I mean, they brag now, but we had 10,000 people over the 4-day period.
We used to get 30,000 here.
Yeah, for the overall, you couldn't even count how many overall.
It was packed. You couldn't park anywhere.
And you talk about the new sheriff, Sharon Worley. She's been here since 1965. She used to be one of the people that was on the ambulance service, and the monies were donated to the ambulance service at that time, search and rescue ambulance service. And she said they used to have big parties in the community center on the Thursday night before, and that's when they took all the meat and they wrapped it all in the tin foil, and they prepared everything, and it was a big community thing.
It was a community event.
Everybody got involved, and it was, hey, you want to come over and help? And it wasn't, well, how much you going to pay me? It was, oh yeah, sure, I'll bring my friends,
I wish I knew how things get to where a community event, to where people saying, the Pahrump Fall Festival was cruddy this year.
Yeah,
and you go like, well, what did you do? Well, what do you mean? I went down. No, it used to be a community event, and everybody participated in it. Now somehow it became their event, and I just go down there. We need to get that. See, I'm big on volunteerism, that you get involved. The government's doing this. Well, why can't we form a committee and we do this? And we do it as better, and let them worry about law enforcement and fire department.
Here's a good example of what happened with the Fallen Festival. The town took it for a while. They didn't really want it. They said, okay, chamber or paved. Well, at that time, paved was pretty well broke up, and it was reorganizing, and so we had some people on there that really cared, and Paula Glidden was one of them, and she was trying to raise some money, make a money. How should I say that? She wasn't trying to make money for herself. She was trying to make money for the festival so it could be bigger and better the next year. And so we volunteered at CCSC, which I'm the president of, volunteered to do garbage pickup for the whole entire weekend, because the year before, when the town had it, there were so many complaints over flies because they weren't getting the garbage picked up, and then the flies were coming and it was affecting the food booths and people trying to eat and everything. So there was a charge of the Shea Brothers about $6,000. Of course, that included, pumping the
Porta potties.
Bringing the porta potties, bringing the big garbage cans, and a few other things, and then having some people to pick up. So we were trying to save money on that. So we volunteered, and there were several of the men from CCSC, and Matt donated from the town. He donated the use of the little, like a golf cart thing, and they pulled a little trailer behind it, and we worked separate shifts. And so the guys, we had a booth there, and we were raising money for, well, we were fighting with the wild horse issue, but we were raising money at that time for the Dream Chasers Horse Ranch Rescue also. So it was working out really well. It was just a community thing. It was actually a lot of fun. And so the guys traded on and off different shifts, and they kept rotating the whole 4 days. They rotated, and they kept that trash picked up, and then they would take it over and put the big cans that the Shays had donated. And everybody was happy, and we were looking forward to maybe doing it to next year. And then, of course, you had a few people like the town manager and some of the town board members that actually went out of their way to say nasty comments about us helping, and started calling us, oh, those people are just garbage people, they're trash people, they're nobodies, blah, blah, blah. Instead of saying, hey, that was great, look at all the money that was saved. So that annoyed some of the guys, and next year the town takes it back over and then has the nerve to call us and say, would you do that again this year? Could you save us some money, And we just told them no. As long as the town is involved in this, the town will pay, because we were nothing but downgraded for what we tried to do the year before. And these guys did it. It wasn't only that we did a lot of things. We were out there when the wind came up at 12 o'clock at night trying to put everybody's booze back together because their tents were flying and their umbrellas were going and paper everywhere. We were actually literally there till 3 o'clock in the morning.
It was windy that whole weekend.
Paper, picking up the papers and putting them back. So, and the ones where we couldn't find where they went, we just stockpiled them, and the next day they came to the booth and said, did you find such and such? And we'd say, yeah, it's probably over there. Come and get it, So we wouldn't do it, but we are volunteering again this year to help with it, because now the town board doesn't have anything.
Right, it's a shame.
Has it.
Let me ask you about that town board, because you're on the commission, and I know it's been discussed what's going to happen to the town board, and you guys are just kind of running the town board. Wait a minute, you guys are not the town board,
we are the town advisory board.
I guess you're the town board. You're making all the town decisions. But can you envision a day down the road? Let me back this up. I'm having a horrible time today. I was sad when I started writing articles and speaking out against a town board, because I believe in an elected representative, and the closer to the people you get, you can. But we've spent some time here just sort of talking down. It was a horrible situation, what we had going, and we literally had to throw the baby out with the bathwater to sort of gain control as citizens here. But I'd like to see something in the future. I've said that we needed a cooling off period. People say, well, we need to take back control, that again. And I said, wait, we just need to have a cooling off period here. And just let this thing settle down. But sometime in the future, I would like to see the citizens of Pahrump run Pahrump again. And I don't know how. I'd like to your comment this, because I don't know if that's the way to do it with a town board, or if there's another vehicle to do it with. Some people have said we need a city, but I've thought that that's too expensive to put a city in here, because now you have a mayor and councilman.
We can learn from experience.
It's more. So maybe there's some hybrid form of government that we need to invent that nobody else has ever tried.
You're right. You're on the right track there.
Some hybrid,
I have considered that. Our minds are running about the same level here. The town board had been having problems for years. This wasn't the first town board that had a problem. But each town board, it just seemed to get worse and worse. And this one was full of dictators. Absolute dictators. It was so bad that even one of the town board members resigned, if you remember right. Carolyn Enderby absolutely came into the meeting one night, said, I'm done with this. I'm leaving. She gave her little speech about how one of the reasons she was leaving was because there was a coup going on between the town manager and certain town board members, and she was not about to be part of that. And she could see the writing on the wall. And she said to the audience, which I was part of the audience then, and I was not a commissioner yet, and she said, and believe me, people, you are being heard. Your complaints and the things you're saying at these board meetings are being heard. Don't give up. And she got up and walked out with Harley screaming behind her, where are you going? What are you doing? At least tell us why you're leaving. Come back here. Come back here.
And like he didn't know. This was his fault.
And she just kept walking. She never looked back, and I have never heard a word from her since.
And I've never seen her either. She's gone.
No, she's gone.
She disappeared from the face of the earth.
And
that shows you, folks, the utter hole we were. I don't even know, Donna, how to explain how bad this was. I'm getting a little expletive today, but it was a horrible situation. But what about now that you've had it for a few months? What do you, as a commissioner, and what maybe you can't even talk about what's being discussed about the future of Pahrump? You guys have got enough on your plate with the county.
Well, with me, with the commission, and taking on the town board issue is not really that much different because I had followed them and I was so closely involved anyway in both aspects that it's just the norm for me. It may be something more for a lot of the others, but with me it was nothing really new. At this point, what we're trying to do is transition and get everything put in place, which if we threw a town board back in there right now, it would just become more problems rather than, because then we're back to square one. We have to start worrying about all the new town board members and everything starts all over again. So we've got to get transitioned in, and right now I have not heard from anybody that says they want another town board. They are just so disappointed from the last several years that they're saying the less people in the less government officials you have as far as they're concerned, the better, because they can come to us and complain about the town or the county. They can get it all wrapped up in one package. Maybe in the future, we'll see what comes out of this for at least this first year. If the people decide that they want something different and we can reorganize and maybe do it in a little different way, I don't see any problem with that. But they do have representation, and they have representation that they're paying for. And we're not costing them those extra bucks. You got to realize, as far as budget goes, we're sitting there and we have our budget that we work under, and we're still working the same hours. I mean, we're not holding special meetings, so that's not costing extra staff.
Right.
We've just blended that right into whatever we're doing. Maybe it takes an extra 20, 30 minutes to go over these things because we don't have the controversial items. We don't create the controversial items that the old town board did that caused them to be in a meeting for 5 hours. We're doing business. We're just taking care of the business end of it. We're paying the bills. We're transitioning, and we're saving money in the same time. And yes, they have representation. Because we're being paid to be county commissioners already, and we're basically just throwing this in. And we don't have the extra expense of traveling. We don't have the extra expense of belonging to the League of Cities. We are following through with this year because the League of Cities already paid for us. So a few people have been going to some meetings, but that will probably go away. I see no need for having a League of Cities when we're not a city. And we don't have the per diem expenses. So we're not paying everybody's lunch, their airfare, their gas, supplying them with cars, whatever. So it actually...
We're saving money.
Yeah, absolutely. In so many ways.
So there's been an issue that's come up 3 or 4 times in the history of the town of Pahrump about incorporating into a city. I just mentioned a few minutes ago. And I tell you, I looked at that when people say something, I do my research. And I read past studies, and I read what the people felt. And people in Pahrump, maybe it's fine with Mesquite or Boulder or some other place, they'd like to be a city, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of people here that really support cityhood other than the people that used to be town board members.
That have sour grapes and have no place else to go.
Have been, and I've heard that there's been actually some movement on their part to try to carve out part of Pahrump and make a city, but that sort of was, I guess, blew up too. So,
well,
do you think there's ever? Do you think this is something that's going to come up in the near future, that we're going to be facing another expense, because it does cost money to put elections on? Yes. That there's going to be yet another petition drive, another move to to come up with a city idea for Pahrump?
Well, to start with, they have to make some changes in the legislature, in the laws, to get it on the way they want to do it. If they want to do something other than incorporate the whole town, if they want to pick out, and I've heard that they want to just do the high class area,
Yeah,
what they
Mountain
consider
Falls,
high
a
class.
winery, out where the new spring
Anything
mountain-
that they consider is going to bring in high tax dollars, which is fine. You know, they have some nice areas out there, and they don't want to take care of any of the more poor areas or poor people or anything. So
like me. No.
yeah, it's like most of us just getting along. So they want to incorporate Mountain Falls, Artesia, the new the
Speedway?
raceway,
Yeah,
the
raceway
new
thing.
development down there, and that's fine. Except there's not a middle class anymore. We have we've done away with the middle class. We have the rich and we have the poor basically, and we're struggling in between to try to fix things. But we have a lot of people. And I watch the legal ads in the paper. I don't know if you do, but I specifically watch for foreclosures. That kind of tells me how the economy's going.
Right.
And at first, you had a lot of people living in old mobile homes, and they were hurting because they owed $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 on their modulars or whatever, and they were losing their houses because they were the little guy who'd lost their jobs. Well, now if you look at them, it's all the big guys losing their houses.
Right.
Because now that the middle class is gone, the jobs are gone. Their jobs aren't becoming worthless, and so they're losing houses down in Artesia, down in Mountain Falls, down in Cottonwoods, and some of them have they owe $250,000, $350,000, $400,000 on those houses, and they're walking out of them because they can't make those high payments anymore. So I don't know if that's going to be such a great idea anyway. And I don't know if they're watching that and they're taking that into consideration.
Well, I think it's funny because people that if you get into research, like I mentioned this Tesla report right here, houses isn't what supports the town. Industry does, businesses, because the more that you increase the town's population with just dwellings and developments, the further in the hole a town or a county would be. And that was brought up in this. I know that I talked with John Boston about this last week, but it said right here, I think it's right here, it says, all development scenarios produce annual net deficits. That was the end of the study. Basically, that one line right there said it all, in that just telling builders they can go build more houses and more affluent houses and more expensive houses, that still, a house does not pay what it costs the county or the town to service the people living there. We spend more in services than we're going to get from property tax. What you need is more like industry or people coming in with commercial operations. That's where the money goes to support a town. So to incorporate Mountain Falls, you would end up with a whole bunch of people out there demanding services, and you'd be just getting their property taxes to try to pay for it. And they demand a city police officer out there, they demand a city fire department out there, they demand all the things that a city would demand, and that they would only be paying their property taxes. And I think if those people looked at it, and those that are watching this can don't take my word for any of this stuff I ever talk about, check this out yourself, that it was going to cost you way more than you're now paying in property taxes if you expect a city to come in and wave a magic wand, and suddenly all of a sudden you have streets of gold, sidewalks, and all that. That stuff is not free, and so what we really need is better jobs, better schools, and more investment coming into the town, and less drain on our water. So I think there's some things that we can talk in a public conversation to do this, but it's not the people that want to incorporate just so that they can become a councilman, they can become a mayor, they can be the new town city manager. Those things, I understand you people that want to do this and gain a position of authority and importance and stuff, but that isn't the solution for Pahrump.
Well, I was told they were intended to pay the mayor $300,000 a year.
Oh yeah.
So where is this coming from?
It's just ridiculous.
I will tell you that from doing the incorporation myself, if you remember right, I told you that we took in anything that we could that would brought us money, like the industry, the hotels.
The industry's where it's
and
at.
we left the people out, as many people as we could leave out,
Because
and
they
we took
cost
the
money.
vacant land where we could actually develop more industry on it. And it wasn't all about taking in rich people, that's for sure, because then, like you said, then you have infrastructure and you have your sheriff and your fire and all this that you have to add to. It's not that you don't have it, you have to add to it. But I think what they're counting on, which is what we were counting on, and we found out we were going to get a lot of big money at that time, and it's not going to happen now because the state's so broke, is that if you incorporate, then you become privy to a lot of other revenue that you don't get as a town and a county. And
a share of it, tax state revenue for the city's share.
You get it from the cities, you get it from cigarette tax and liquor tax and gaming tax, and a lot of things we don't get now because we're not incorporated. So it in a way that kind of hurts us, but to incorporate this time, it's not a good deal because the state is so broke too. Now, if we'd have done it back when there actually was a move to do this back in about 1990 when I first came out here, and I told you it was all over the state. It was a big thing. People wanting to incorporate these small towns. And Mesquite, the city of Mesquite, had just been incorporated, and then of course we did Mesa Vista, and Laughlin was looking at it, and Pahrump was looking at it, and the people from the city of Mesquite, the council actually came out here and met with the people and everything and said, this is how it's working out for us. And it was wonderful because they did have streets of gold. Oh my God, they had so much money came from the state, so much revenue came in, and this was a little farming community with one main street, and they couldn't spend it fast enough. I mean, they were putting in sidewalks and street lights and, recreation and the whole 9 yards just trying to spend this money. And it was wonderful and it looked good, and the city of Mesquite is beautiful. And they have a lot. But over the years, those council people that were like us, that really cared, started getting phased out, and new people started coming in more and more. And then the taxes started creeping up, because now they have all these things that they put in that they have to maintain. Oh, now the sidewalks are going bad 20 years later, so the sidewalks have to be tore up and new sidewalks put in. And of course the street lights need to be replaced because they don't fit the decor anymore and they want something fancy. And if you go down their main street, it's beautiful. They have curbs and gutters and trees and plants in the middle, but somebody's paying for all that, and the state's going broke. So
maybe a hybrid, like I mentioned. That I don't have anything against the term city, but I would have a problem with a city that now we got new patches on the sheriff, the police departments that we're paying for, and new cars and all that. That maybe if we had a hybrid city, that we just have a mayor, maybe 3 council members, and they're all volunteers, but we would have the cityhood that we could get the state taxes from, but not this big power base that I think these people were envisioning when they talk incorporation. They're talking about just coming back in as the size of a town board, hiring a town manager. I don't think we need that. I know that
paying themselves big wages.
We could become a city, and I'm going to throw this out here for people.
Oh, they can work for
that
free
is a
if
hybrid
they want.
city. We could contract out to the sheriff's department for sheriff's services. We could, if we had a volunteer fire department, we could do that. We could not have all the expenses, but we could get the tax revenue from the state of being a city. Maybe that's something down the line that people could have. But like I said, we need to have a conversation about this, folks. An honest conversation. And there's a certain people that you're going to see me in the future that if they ran for dog catcher, I wouldn't be supporting them. But we need more. There's enough talent in this town of retired people that have been on other committees, other cities, staffs, that have done this before. That if we can entice these people to come together and help out, we probably could do something down. But I agree with you that let's just get this thing right now. Let's get it on an even keel.
If they were going to do it,
but you know what? One of the things I've commented on is that I haven't missed a town board. It's like, oh my God, the sky was going to fall in once the county commissioners took it over. And outside of this dog, the situation with the animal shelter that I think had been worked out here, I haven't heard. There hasn't been any big issues. We don't have. Nobody's saying we need to build a water park. Nobody's saying we need to do anything.
And it's not county taking the town's money. This is county managing the town's money. We're not taking it anywhere. We're just rerouting it from where it was going before.
Right.
It's still there. It's not going anywhere. It has to be spent. I mean, we can't. That's the reason it's there, is for it to be spent on the citizens. It's not there for us to bankroll it,
Yeah.
and deny the people anything out of it. But
We haven't lost anything from having no town manager.
no, we
What
haven't
have we
lost a
lost?
thing. Yeah, Pam goes down once a week, and she takes care of everything at the manager's office. She sits there, takes questions, does her thing, whatever. It takes her one day, where it took Susan 5 days and Kohlbarger forever, and
So we're just more efficient right now.
that's what it's all about, and that's what you do in your own life. If you think you're getting in over your head and things are getting really bad, then you start taking a different look at it, and you start reworking your budget, and you start eliminating some things, and you start redirecting your money to other things.
Think out of the box.
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing.
We got to go on.
Yes.
This is going to probably be, folks, more than one episode.
Well, I was going to say you can cut it, you can patch you can do
'cause I'm
one
not
on
gonna
incorporation, you can do one on animal control.
because I'm not going to have this as one. I mean, I'm going to have to look at this when I go through it. It's going to take me all night.
Between you and
to
I,
edit
we
this.
could be here all night.
But, yeah, because I mean, it's interesting talking to somebody that's actually in the know of what's going on and has had the experience. Let me get one. Let's do.
I'm
let's see,
certainly
then I
not
got
in
it.
this to be a dictator. I mean, I
Yeah.
could care less about being a dictator and the whole
Yeah.
thing.
I think I've covered a lot of this stuff. Now, even though I didn't want to cover it about that all that way. What about the Bureau of Land Management? Let's make that the last topic for this show.
Now that one got a yes vote from me. So sometimes my yeses and nos actually mean
Right.
the same thing.
But
It's
you know,
just what
and I'm not
direction-
going to reiterate because if people want to know about that issue, you can go back to the other.
Yeah.
I think the first episodes 1 through about 4 of this Right Talk was about the BLM land grab. But why don't you give your thoughts?
Well, I've had a
on it?
problem with BLM for years, years and years and years. This is nothing new. This goes back to when they've been grabbing land forever. You know how you see how much, where they have 87% of the state's
Yeah, well,
land.
there's nothing left
it's
for
been,
us.
Yes, and it's been going on. And funny, the last few days I've been getting these things from places like, I believe it's probably the Sierra Club, but there are other clubs out there like that, the same thing committee saying, oh no, the state shouldn't take our land. We don't want to give it to the land. You want to fight that. You want the BLM to keep it and keep managing it because the state's just going to take it and sell it off. Well, what does the BLM do? We can't use it anyway. We might as well sell it and get some revenue for it because we're not having access to it anyhow. They're only now they're just keeping it. They're dictating to us. They're in control, and they're getting money from the federal government to manage this, which creates jobs for them and their families and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the same way with the horse roundups. I mean, they could care less about those horses. They could care less about the cattle.
I know.
They just want the money so they can keep making jobs. And they know that if they're not rounding those up, they're going to have to go find a job somewhere else. But it costs a lot of money. It's a big lot of money. I mean, they a couple of years ago they were giving the BLM 108. They gave them $82 million to round up the horses in Nevada. Yeah. Well, for that I said, because they said, well, they're ruining the land for the cattle. We need to graze the cattle. Okay, I said, it's the horses today, it's the cattle tomorrow, and it'll be the people next. So you better watch out what you're doing here. It's not what you think. And sure enough, that's where we're at the point now. They were trying to round up the Bundys. And, I mean, we were looking at maybe having another Waco there because the Bundys were not going to move. And so that got very serious, and I consider that rounding up the people. But I said, okay, let's tank the $82 million, and you'll still have jobs, but instead of taking the wild horses, putting them somewhere where we have to feed them and you can't take care of them, and it's
Like a zoo.
absolute trauma to these horses, absolute trauma. Then let's leave the cattle in the pens, take the $82 million, feed the cattle, sell the cattle back out on the market, get some of that money back out of the meat, make the farmer pay, or the rancher can pay a little extra. That could all be worked out, and the horses would be real happy, and they'd just be keeping the grasses down, and then we wouldn't have fires to fight.
Yeah, this is what frustrates me about this whole conversation is that it's been about 500 years ago that the Spaniards came here, and this is where our horses came from. I mean, there's no horses that were native to North America that I'm aware of, and then same way with the wild burros, like burro. What do you call them? Burros, donkeys, whatever they are. I call them donkeys.
We've imported a lot of things.
But these animals were here and then I guess some of them escaped or whatever happened, but they started wandering the lands on themselves, and they've been doing fine for 500 years.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's been weather changes, climate changes, and in the wild, herds naturally go up and go down in population based upon what's going on. You don't have to manage a herd. A herd manages itself, and it does it in the most humane way it is. It's just nature. And then the cattlemen have been here for about 150 or 60 years, I guess, that they were really here. And they've been, it's just been going along. The cattle go out and eat the grass, and they don't really affect the horses. I think it's mainly a manufactured excuse.
Absolutely.
Because they've been living in a symbiotic relationship for 150 years until the BLM came in about 1950, I guess it was, and decided, well, no, it isn't their hurt. The horses hurt this, and the Bureau. Now, my wife and I, we travel all over the state because of my business that I've had, now that I'm wrapping it up from being retired. But I told her the last few trips north, I says, now I want you to keep an eye on where these horses are at, all these millions of horses, because we're going through, from here to Elko, it takes us all day. It's 525 miles up here. For instance, when I go up there, I said, so Betsy, I want you watching for all these horses. And one time when we came almost into Goldfield, which is what Goldfield from here, about 80 miles, we saw about 15 horses. And they were most beautiful horses running around out there. And they were just across this field. And I didn't see a single cow out there that these horses were bothering. They just were romping along, doing what horses are doing, I guess, going from a water hole to grass to whatever the horses are doing. And then another time I says, well, hey, there's two horses over there. And we've seen some mountain goats, and we've seen some, but this is part of wildlife. This has just been stuff. The BLM comes in and says, a horse is no good because it's bothering a snail over here.
Yeah.
Or something that they come up with. What? Let me go look at this thing. I can't even find these owls or anything that they talk about. I don't think most people do. I don't look very hard.
I've been here forever, and I've seen maybe 2 owls in my lifetime.
And so it seems to me, Donna, they invent reasons to control us. They just invent it. Now, there's a couple that started a church up here in a valley. I can't remember, Smoky Valley, is it called? Or
oh, you're talking about the one out in Ash Meadows?
Yeah, the government just came in and rerouted
took their water away.
Away from their property. Just, I guess, to chase them off. But so the BLM is an issue, and for the BLM to say it's not an issue is just a farce. Now, I know we have to manage lands, because I went on a ride with a BLM officer. They reached out to me, and I went out, and I could see what they're talking about. There's people out there that are cutting, they're butchering the land. They're stealing trees and stuff, cutting them down for firewood. And there's garbage dumped out there, but that has nothing with horses or anything.
That's not the cow's fault.
That's a law enforcement issue.
Do something to the people, yeah.
So my position is on this, and I want you to get your opinion on this, is that where Pahrump or any town sits, that there needs to be a lands, I don't know how much it could be, 10 miles out, 20 miles out, that just, if the town needs it for expansion, you could just do it. And I don't care if it's the county managing it, the state managing it, or who, that you just don't have to go through heaps of bureaucracy to be able to take that land, and if somebody wants to come in and put solar panels out there, or whatever, they can do it, and we have jobs. Not 15 years from now, going through one committee after another in Washington, D.C. to get this land, and by then the guy said, I don't even want to do it. I've decided to go to Bolivia with my solar plant. I'm not even going to do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's an idea that has never been explored that I'm aware of. And the second thing is, what's wrong with Nevadans managing Nevada?
Absolutely.
Who can manage your neighborhood better than the people living in your neighborhood? That's kind of the way I've looked at this. And then the second thing is that in my studies, when the BLM was first formed and they first hired people, it was ranchers and people that went to work for the BLM. Because why? They were interested in trails and stuff that benefited the people's living there, the rancher stuff. Those people retired, and now what we get is some kid that went to, environmentalist, wacko I call him, that went to school in New Hampshire, graduated in college and as environmental studies, and decides to go save Nevada. And he's who comes out here. Now, this is a generic person I'm making up here. Comes out here and goes to work for the BLM, and he's going to tell me how to manage Nevada. And I live here. I have this home we're sitting in, and this well, my fifth wheel trailer studio that I have here. This is mine. This is Nevada. I have an interest. You have the same interest. You have your place here.
Well, they'll be
You've been here
managing your
forever.
land next.
Like, we don't know how to manage Nevada.
Yeah, they see that.
We're going to ruin Nevada if we have to manage it.
Absolutely, and they have that mentality where they think that they try to treat us like we're not adults, like
Right.
we're a bunch
We're
of
little
little
kids.
kids. You know, and this is part of the brainwashing that they get when they first come in. You know, is those are just a bunch of dumb hicks out there, and you don't pay any attention to them. You're above that, and we'll tell you how to do this.
You went to school in New Hampshire.
Yes.
You know better than we do.
But when it started out, it was not about managing people. Like you said, it was strictly about managing land, and the people really pretty much went along with that.
Yeah.
But now they've become an absolute dictatorship. And as far as getting land that we can take care of, you know, they put it on, what is that list they call it? Where you can sell the land off. They have a certain portion of the land every so often that they let go to sell off. Disposable land.
Yeah, like
the
surplus
disposable
or
list.
something.
Yeah, they have what they call a BLM disposable list, and they put lands on that. And then the surrounding towns and things can actually go in and buy it up or bid it, and it's supposed to be fairly cheap. And that's how they were going to get the land for the airport. It was supposed to go on the
For here
disposable
at
list.
Pahrump.
Yeah, for here in Pahrump.
And how many years has been that?
Yeah, 30 years.
Yeah.
And so, but then I was talking to a lady from BLM last week, and she informed me, well, yeah, we have the disposable list, and we can put disposable things on it, and it can be approved, but that doesn't mean it's going to be let go. That can take another 10, 15, 20 years. So don't count on properties being on a disposable list of you being able to just turn around in a few weeks and develop it or sell it or do whatever with it.
So then we shouldn't count on being able to use our own land.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And all that did was confirm what I've known and I've been saying for quite some time. And, you know, we had a petition out when we did, when CCSC as an organization put out 5 petitions. I don't know if you were aware of that, a couple of years ago. And we just threw them all in at one time because we figured, well, if we're going through all the trouble petition for one thing, let's petition for all the things that are really bothering us or concerns to us right now. So one of them was what they all really were was to put all 5 issues to a vote of the people in the upcoming election that we were having, and I think that would have been the 2011 election. One was to keep or do away with the town board. The other was to tell BLM no, that they could not take another horse or burro out of Nye County, strictly Nye County. We weren't trying to do it for the state. And the other, what was the other issue? No more prisons. Just say that's
We didn't want to be
it.
a prison county.
Absolutely no more prisons, unless all this stuff went to a vote of the people at some point. I'm trying to think of what the other 2 were. Let's see, we did the town board, Yucca Mountain, wild horses, prison. Yeah, one of them was the Yucca Mountain issue. Do you or do you not want to spend the money to continue the development of Yucca Mountain? And I'll think at number 5 pretty soon. But anyway, they were supposed to go on a ballot. Well, Coonsey got elected, and there's 2 ways you can do it. One would have been an initiative, one would have been a referendum. And we looked at them, and neither one of them really fit. But it was closer to a referendum than an initiative because we weren't asking the state to change any state laws. There was nothing that we were asking them to change, so we didn't feel that fit there. So the closest was the referendum. Well, because we were doing a referendum, we only had to have, I believe it was 10% of the voters to sign that to get it on the ballot, and the initiative would have taken 15%. So we got probably 12%. We were somewhere in between, thinking that we were well over our 10%. Well, when it came time to put it on the ballot, Coonsey, who had just became DA, blocked it, would not allow them to go on the ballot because in his opinion they were initiatives. So Judith Olgram and I and Donald and some other people got up and we argued the point with him. And he said, you know, I'm saying this is what it is what it is. If you don't like it, hire an attorney and sue us. Well, yeah, we're right there. We have to have this has to go on the ballot immediately. We can't wait for 3 months to get an opinion because you have to have your things turned into the election department by a certain date.
And he knew that.
Absolutely, he played that game well. You see now that he is no longer.
Yeah,
DA, right?
and he wondered after the election
Yes.
how come he got voted out.
Absolutely, and that was just one of the things he did. So, okay, so we didn't do anything with it. We just let them sit, except for the town board issue. That one was agreed upon that the county commissioners would put it on their agenda and they would vote on it. That's how we got that on the ballot. And we could have done all 5, but the other commissioners were not interested in the other 4 because, Dan's doing Yucca Mountain. We got Lorenda with the wild horse issue. She wouldn't allow that to go through. Well, anyway, they all had a reason, but we got I thought really was the most important one at that time on the ballot. And you know where that went to. But during Coonsey's campaign this last time around, and he was a Democrat, and majority of us are Republicans or Tea Party people or independent Americans, whatever. But we've never said you can't be a Democrat. They just kind of isolate themselves. And they're not even really the Democrats.
I don't even hear about them anymore. They're more communist than they are.
Yeah, there's this group that they
I'm sorry, folks, I had to say that, but the Independent Democrat Party is not the Democrat Party that my dad, who was a Jacksonian
We were all Democrats. We were raised as Democrats.
Yes, I was raised a Catholic.
We were forced to become Republicans.
Senator Jackson from Washington State, I was on his knee being bound because my dad was big in Democrat politics up in Washington State, and he put on the Democrat picnic, and the Democrat Party, I'm going to tell you right now, is not the one I was raised in.
Absolutely not, and that's how we ended up.
It left me like Republicans left me.
And I know what you're talking about. A lot of people say that because we were all raised as Democrats. Oh, in the old days, you had to be a Democrat. Well, I had the same experience. All of a sudden,
it wasn't the Democrat. Now it's
thing.
more closer aligned with socialism and communism, and
they call it the progressive. They're
progressive Democrats. That's right.
Yes, progressive Democrats. So, which the ones in this town are. I mean, they're the only Democrats I know of are the progressive.
Exactly.
So one day I had an experience with Coonsey one day on Karen Jackson's show, and she always tells it like whoever's there.
Karen has K9 radio station here.
And so Coonsey does the 3.5 hour thing, and at this time he had planned to rerun, but we weren't heavy into the election at this time. But his whole platform was based on getting us out of office, getting rid of CCSC and getting rid of the Republican people. And he did about 3.5 hours of her and then a half an hour of, and he starts out with, listen people, and he's talking to his progressive Democrats. There's this little they like to call us little very well organized group out there that's putting their people into office. And there's an election coming up. And if you people don't get out and work really, really hard to get your candidates into office, they're going to put theirs in there. And you've got to really work. And I can't stress to you how hard you've got to really work to stop this. You've got to stop this. And he was on this little rant, okay? And I thought, boy, if that's the way he thinks he's going to win this election, it's a piece of cake. We've got him. So then he went over to what they have, the Jackson Day dinner, like we have Lincoln Day. And he starts in again. Never mentions any names. Just starts in. There's this little group, blah, blah, blah. And it ends up in the front page of the newspaper with him saying this. And, of course, Mark Waite knows who he's talking about. And he's saying Donna Cox and CCSC, right? Well, by this time I was a commissioner. And he's pointing fingers at all of us. Well, that didn't help his campaigning, let me tell you. Because if that was all he had to campaign on, instead of what the good he'd done and the good he hadn't done, he was going to lose. And so he basically sowed his own fate. But in the meantime, because of some of these antics and because there were Republicans, the NCRCC went out and recruited some people. And that's how we ended up with Angela. Yeah, and it's been a godsend to me because I can actually sit down and talk to her and have conversations with her, and we couldn't do that with Coonsey. Coonsey was very involved in the county, but he spent most of his time with the county manager and running around doing whatever. And you just...
He was running everything.
We had nothing in common.
Brian Coonsey, every meeting he went to, they'd all turn to him, and he was like now the expert on land development, the expert on planning, the expert on water, the expert on this. I mean, it's like it was Brian Coonsey,
It was his meeting.
his meeting, you know,
Absolutely.
and you're like, excuse me, Brian, can I talk on this too? You know,
Yeah, he got
I
mad.
like your opinion. He'd get upset about it. You're the
He get
DA,
mad
you know,
me.
we're talking about water issues here, you know. And, well, I know the law, you know, yeah, well, Brian. But what was funny was that while he was doing all of that, okay, what's really funny is that instead of doing his job and then there was a host of complaints. I know people that have told me personally that they had a case, you know, that was going through the courts, and his office wouldn't even contact them about it. They'd show up and the case had been postponed or it had been hurt, you know, whatever, and nobody was telling them about it. Nobody was on top of it from the DA's office. They called and people had lost the files, and so what his real job was as DA wasn't even
They
handling.
still can't find the
He
files.
was out here running the county for us, you
Even
know.
more gone.
You know, and it's like, and then he'd make excuses, you know.
Yeah.
And then he'd settle cases because it would be so goofed up. You know, the investigators, the sheriff department hadn't done their job right, and his DA investigators hadn't coached them on what we really need to get in here on this case, and so he'd have to, you know, turn basically the bad guys loose back into our community because he wasn't doing his job. So he had a lot of issues. But,
Well,
but it's
Angela
amazing.
had a
So
tough time.
the CC that you talk about is